Hello and welcome to Coffee with Dr. Carla. I'm Dr. Carla, and today I have Lindsay Evans with me. Thank you for being here. We are so glad that you're here with us. And today our goal is to talk about a few different mental health related issues and the stigma surrounding them in hopes that maybe we can put an end to that stigma. So there has been a lot of talk in the media for the last several years. A little bit more like it should be, but about race and about culture. And um, I think that a lot of things that happen, um, I think there's some good conversations going around. And sometimes mental health comes about,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it gets glossed over. And so I'm just curious. Give me your thoughts or your input about where mental health needs to fit in all of this, and what traditionally has been the
Mm-hmm.
the the, the stance on mental health.
So in our culture, it's what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Yeah.
So everything is, it's not a secret, but it's a secret. You don't seek help because then you're not keeping the family's business in the family.
Do you seek help within the family?
No,
Okay.
no. Um, if they're anything like my family, they're very opinionated. So you will hear their opinions,
Whether or not it helps.
whether or not it helps.
Okay.
But sometimes, one thing I've noticed, like with my mom and aunts, the way that they grew up, they weren't very emotionally connected, and they didn't have um, that loving hug all the time relationship. It was more, do what I said, okay, I love you or something.
Right.
And so now our generation is a little different because we're more emotional, we're more affectionate, and they have a hard time kind of trying to navigate through that because they're like, okay,
Yeah, you
you're
can
doing
stop
too
touching
much.
me now.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah. So, you know, having that, then to come into, really talk about something so personal
Yeah.
and, where I mean, you're in the most vulnerable state. You don't want to be judged because you're going to start there, you'll be judged. And then you don't want your business in the streets.
No.
And so we don't do it. Now it's starting a little bit to reach out, to more people in our culture, but it's a huge stigma. Like, no.
So I'm curious because clearly you are here with me.
Yes.
And clearly we deal in mental health. So something happened somewhere along the way
Yes.
that, even though growing up, your culture, your family said, this is the way to do it,
Mm-hmm.
um, you had a different opinion.
Yes.
So I don't know, maybe you can give us a little
Let
insight
me
to like
tell you
what
what
that was
happened
like. Yeah.
because my dad was upset. So I was feeling down. I just kept feeling down. So I went to my primary care doctor. I was like, I just keep feeling down, and I just didn't want to feel down
Right.
anymore. And so he diagnosed me with major depressive disorder, general anxiety disorder, and he gave me meds.
Oh,
My dad had a fit about the meds. He was like, no, they're always trying to drug us. It's the whole everybody's trying to kill us off. And I'm like,
yeah.
no, it actually makes me feel better. So to come to my family to let them know that I was diagnosed with this and I'm doing this to help, it was tough. It was challenging.
Ho- Out of curiosity, how old were you? I mean, was this recent or was this when you were much younger or?
I didn't get help until a couple years ago.
Oh, so just a few years ago. Okay.
Now I've experienced it. When my son is 7, my first child, I didn't realize I was going through postpartum.
Ah, okay.
I didn't know. I had my god sister would come over and she's like, open the curtains, come out. And I was like, I don't want to. Now that I'm more educated in it, I was like, oh, I was in it.
Okay. Okay.
So, once I was able to recognize that there was something off, I needed some help. That's when.
Okay. So you started with your primary care.
Yes.
Um, and a lot of people do. And my opinion, primary care physicians are trying to help,
Mm-hmm.
but they have a maybe one rotation, you know, in the world of psychology and
Right.
mental health. And so, they only know so
So
much.
much.
What happened after that? I mean, because, the meds helped.
They helped.
Where did therapy come in, and how did you try to navigate that, knowing, again, the cultural factors, the family factors, now you have dad mad, not just, I don't like it, I'm mad, right?
Yeah. Ooh. Um, this was before I had my daughter. My daughter's 1. She'll be 2. So that's when I went and got help. And then I was pregnant, so I had to go off my meds cold turkey.
Ooh, okay.
When I had her, my doctor and I were trying to, monitor it. And then I just had a whole mental breakdown. And so he's like, okay, let's get back on your meds. And then I finally said, you know what? I think I need to go talk to someone.
Oh, so it was you who...
It was me.
Okay.
It was me.
Okay. Did you have examples of that in your community, in your
No.
family?
No. Like, the closest we would have to it is marriage counseling. Like, that's a
Okay.
big thing.
Okay.
But that's it. It's nothing else. Unless it was like, a family counseling session. Like, if there was, some difficulties going on where, the child gets removed from the house, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
That type of a thing.
Okay. So no real examples,
Mm-mm.
but yet you're like, I know I need more than what I'm doing right now.
Because we're taught you just pray, and
Yep.
God'll
Yep.
God'll do it. And so I prayed. I was
Yep.
praying, and it didn't like go away.
Right.
And so I was like, I think I need a little bit more than prayer. And that's why God gives us, our counselors and therapists and doctors to
Yeah.
help us through it. So
Yeah.
once I figured that out, that's when I was like, okay, let me get some help.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I agree. Prayer helps tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an either or. Many times it's an and. So I'm glad you discovered that. So how did you go about figuring out who you were going to see, right? Because we talk about good fit here. So like when people call up the cognitive clinic, Eva's like, taking down the information and everything, but one of her, spiels that she gives people is, look, I'm gonna, connect you with this person, but if it's not a good fit, say something. Don't suffer, come forward, let us know, and we'll find you somebody else, So we know good fit is very important, and it's also hard to come by.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you figure that all out?
My husband was like, okay, we need to look. So he was helping me. So we were going down pictures. I was like, oh, she's cute. I think I'll talk to her. And then I called Eva.
That's awesome. Well, that is one way of doing it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I knew I needed somebody that could relate to me too.
Okay.
I love, my Caucasian brothers and sisters. Don't get me wrong. But there are some things that we don't all the way understand because we didn't experience it.
Well, and I shared right before we started that, um, my daughter and her husband have a biracial family. And even though we all live together and I see and hear and feel a lot of what's going on, I can't know what it's like for my grandchildren or my son-in-law
Right.
or his family. I can hear what they tell me, but I
Absolutely.
don't really know. I also can walk out of whatever that situation and still continue to be my white self.
Yeah. And we're
And I
stuck
don't,
in it.
right, I don't get,
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about that.
Right.
So that is important. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I started.
That's
And
awesome.
I called him like, please, I asked for the doctor. And she was like, doctor? And I was like, she's not a doctor. I didn't understand
Right.
because I didn't understand there was a difference. There are counselors,
Yeah.
there's psychiatrists, I was like, I didn't know. I just knew I needed the doctor lady.
Yeah. Well, that doctor lady you see at some point she is planning on getting a
Yes, yes,
doctor, and
yes.
so we'll keep pushing her towards that so she can become that doctor lady, but yeah, that's true. That is another assumption, that they assume people who call, it doesn't matter what your background is, they assume that everybody's a doctor.
Everybody's a doctor.
Right, and there's only a couple of us who have that title, so we're just
It's so crazy.
we're always trying to explain to them, no, and it doesn't really make a difference.
It doesn't,
right?
and that's what I learned. It's like, oh, I'm still getting help.
Right.
So that was good.
So maybe can you share, maybe an obstacle that you were anticipating that maybe didn't happen as you started to connect with your therapist. I'm sure there's got to be like what are, what's going to be going on, but like, were there any obstacles or doubts or things that you felt hesitant about?
The only thing is, I'm a very open person anyway, but I knew that this level of openness it left me a little bit more open, so I just didn't want her to judge me.
Okay.
And she constantly, reaffirmed that, we're in this together, and that's not, how she does,
Right.
her counseling. And I mean, she had to show me, a few times, and she said the day that she realized, I was like, now I can just, be my full authentic self.
So that's good. I like that, because I think what happens is that people show up in front of a counselor regardless of what what their educational background is, and they're afraid to really hang out all their dirty laundry for fear of being judged, which is totally uh, understandable, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and if you're not used to doing that, of course you want to kind of tiptoe in there in hopes that you'll be safe, because I mean that's the number one thing they teach us. Before anything else, make sure that you are, creating an environment
And that
that's
they're
safe,
safe.
right?
Yeah.
And I like that you said, even though you were unsure for a little bit, eventually she proved herself to be trustworthy,
Yes.
right? To be a
Yes.
person who you could trust, not to judge you, not to, harm you in any way, so that you could open up, right? But that did take time.
Yes. And, now I'm getting work. I'm getting like homework stuff where I have to actually show up and be present. I'm probably her worst client.
I don't think
I give
so.
her the most pushback.
Well, but I will tell you, from a counselor therapist point of view, I rather have someone push back and have that like really earnest conversation about it than to say
Just go along with
okay,
it.
and
Yeah.
then they don't do it, or they're just passive about it, because that doesn't really get the work done. So
No.
pushing back is not horrible. It's not a terrible thing. Um, I know we could sit here all day and talk,
Yes.
but if you could think of one thing that you could say to somebody else you know, who grew up just like you, where, we keep all of our stuff within the family, and I know that the African American culture definitely does that, but I know Hispanic culture does that. I know a lot of the Asian cultures do that. And so I'm just wondering what one little piece of advice would you give somebody listening who may have been in your
My
spot
shoes.
the way you were years ago? Yeah.
You are strong enough to do it for you. Don't worry about what they'll say. Everyone's going to have their own opinion. But at the end of the day, you want to be your best, healthiest version of yourself. So just do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome advice for everybody out there.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
So remember, you can change your thoughts, discover your potential, and transform your life by focusing on overall well-being. Until next time, continue working on being the best you possible. Bye, everybody.
Bye.